Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Anchored in Hope podcast. I'm Lisa Tony, and today I'm here with my guest, Denise Burdett, and I'm so excited she's here. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited for you to get to hear Denise's story, but before we get into that, of course, I always ask our guest what superpower they would have. So, Denise, if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
You know what? I've always wanted to be able to fly because how cool would that be, honestly, right?
That would be amazing, right?
My daughter shares the same hope and dream. So yeah, maybe someday we'll be
able to
fly.
Do that
Exactly.
together.
Yeah.
So why would you want to fly though? Just to have a different perspective on life or get places faster?
Yeah. I think there's something about being weightless and being able to just kind of soar above it all that just sounds really amazing
cool.
and freeing. Yeah.
Maybe you should be an astronaut.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, that would be cool. My kids would be thrilled. Yes, Mom.
Let's go to space, Mom.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Denise is just an awesome woman of God. She's been a Christian for a long time, and she's married and has 4 kids. And part of her story that she's going to share with us today is about one of her kids. And Denise, I know when Cole was real little, you guys started to kind of notice something about him. So take us back to that moment where you kind of started to notice something was maybe a little bit different about Cole.
Yeah. So when Cole was 1, we moved to Illinois. We were in California, and we decided to move to Illinois because my husband was going to get his doctorate, and it was a very exciting time for our family. And right before we moved, we started to notice that he may not be able to hear us quite the way that we thought he could. Actually, it was prompted by our pediatrician asking those very typical kind of 1-year checkup questions and asking, so does Cole turn to his name? Just one of the questions on the checklist.
Right.
And I said, sometimes, because a 1-year-old, gosh, their attention span is all over the place. Sure. And so I said, sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. But after that, we started thinking about it more after he asked that question. And so we kind of did our own little tests at home when he'd be sleeping in his crib. One time my husband actually went over his crib with like a pot and a pan, kind of thing, like the lid, and just kind of crashed over his head to see if he'd wake up, and he didn't wake up.
Wow.
And so that was one of the first times I remember being in the kitchen when that test went on, and I remember thinking, oh, wow, okay. Because I think, as a mom, there's so many things we could worry about. There's so many concerns we could have. And I was really just practicing not being, too worried about scrapes and, bumps and bruises and everything.
Sure.
And so I just didn't want to stress about something that really wasn't there. But when that happened, I went, okay, all right, this might be a journey that we're going to be going on.
We need to pay attention to this.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we left, we went to Illinois. We were able to get to see a doctor right away, which was such a blessing in our new town. And we discovered through some testing that he actually was profoundly deaf.
Wow.
And so not even just a little hearing loss, but the way that the audiologist described it to us is he could possibly hear the sound of a jet engine of an airplane if he was standing right next to the jet.
Wow.
And so that's just, for our context to understand where his disability level was. And so at that point we realized, okay, we've been given a really special little boy, and God has some amazing plans for him, because one of the amazing things about our move is that we picked our house out on the internet. We were going to this new place.
That's faith right there.
I know. It's like I had never been to Illinois before. We literally packed our stuff out, picked our house out, and just went.
Wow.
And we discovered through all of this journey that not only do we love our neighborhood, but our house was about 10 minutes away from a center for children with hearing loss that had everything from audiologists to speech therapists to surgeons to help with his surgery, because what he ended up getting were cochlear implants that
so it was like God had just planned for you guys to be in a perfect location and be in a place where you guys could get the help that you needed for him.
It really was better than we could have planned it on our own.
That's so amazing. Well, let me back up a little bit to where you said that when you got the diagnosis, you realized that you had a very special little boy. I love that. That's how you frame that. What did you panic go? Was there any fear or frustration or anger, or did you,
good question.
How did you kind of handle that moment of recognizing that, your perfect little boy that you treasured so much, was going to have this journey of some challenge?
Right. I think when we first heard, I remember thinking, definitely I was sad. My husband, his degree's in music. So he was going to get his doctorate in music education. So music and singing and, instruments and all of that is a huge part of our family.
Yes.
And so the thought I remember thinking as a mom, so he's not going to be able to enjoy that with us. Like that's not something he's ever going to understand. You know, we love that and so part of our family culture, but he's going to be separate from all of that. And that was really sad for me, my initial thought about all of that. And then our audiologist gave us a video. It was called Dreams Spoken Here. And it was a video of lots of different kids who had decided to get cochlear implants.
Okay.
And they were going to school and learning to play the violin.
Oh,
they
wow.
were speaking on the screen to us, you know, watchers, like, and talking about this vibrant, full life that they had. And I was so amazed that they were able to hear and they were able to listen and they were able to speak. And I thought, wow, Lord, you know, and again, some people choose when they're born deaf, that is something that they embrace and something that they choose to learn sign language and be a part of the deaf community. And that is a absolute beautiful thing.
Sure.
And we knew when Cole was diagnosed, we found out about his hearing loss, that if he someday wanted to learn sign language and be a part of that community, that is something we would absolutely embrace with him and with joy. But because our family didn't use sign language at that time, we thought, you know what, if there's a chance for him to learn to listen and speak, we absolutely want to give that to him at this age.
Sure.
So we were just grateful for the opportunity and the chance that God gave us to have access to that gift for him of cochlear implants. And the fact that the process was shortened so much by where God moved us was something we literally could not have planned for ourselves. So we were so grateful.
Yeah. It's like God was just planning how to, you know, intervene in your family and show up in a big way. I love that about God, that he finds ways to show himself so powerful, even when we don't anticipate that we're going to need him to be, you know, and he shows up there. Yeah. So, so you guys did go through the journey of getting cochlear implants. So what was that like for Cole and for your family?
Yeah, so we decided to get 2. Some people choose to get 1. So he's bilateral. He has 2 cochlear implants. And it was an interesting journey. And I have to say, the team that we worked with was absolutely from the Lord. I mean, they were incredible. They were we had other kids at this point. So we had our older son, and then I was pregnant with our next daughter. And so we had a lot going on. It wasn't just Cole's journey, which was a huge part of it and definitely felt like the central focus. But they didn't just care about Cole. They cared for my older son. He was a part of appointments and had toys to play with for him. My husband had a lot going on with his doctorate, but we felt like we had been given like a second family through them and through our church family that we found there. And so we felt like the Lord really didn't just take care of Cole. And when we were going, we thought we were going for my husband. And so it's like, okay, God's taking care of our family through giving this opportunity to my husband. But it wasn't just that. It was, oh, my husband's getting his doctorate. That's amazing. Oh my goodness, my son is deaf and now he's getting cochlear implants. That's amazing, God, that you did that. And oh my goodness, you've given us all these amazing friends through our church family who are bringing us meals. And honestly, I remember getting a call one day from a friend from church, and she called me and said, I'm dropping dinner off on your doorstep. She didn't ask if I needed it. She didn't ask, when would be a good time or anything like that. She just said, by the way, I just came by. It's on your doorstep. And I literally hung up the phone and just was crying out to Jesus. Thank you, Lord.
What a blessing.
Thank you. Because again, I probably hadn't even thought about dinner that night yet. Let's be honest. I had a lot going on. Yeah. So God continued to show me, Denise, I have cared for you. I have planned for you. My provision for you has been sought out, and I've planned it out before you even know what you need. And so I think that for me was one of the biggest things God absolutely confirmed to me over and over again in that time was, Denise, it's funny, you're strong because God has given me gifts and I embrace them and I'm grateful for them. But God continues to show me that he wants to do something in me and with me that I can't even plan for, because I may not even know the amazing, the goodness that he has in store. And
the way
so
that he wants to show up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I love that part of your story so much because I think especially when you're married and you're a mom and you have kids and you're asking God for all these things, but for God to go before and provide for a family, I feel like that is so powerful. And, for you guys to make that move for your husband, but that God had provisions for every part of your family was so powerful. And it's just so beautiful. I mean, it really is that, And I also love that the family of God extends,
Yeah.
you know, beyond boundaries, you
Yeah.
know, so you went from a great church in California to a great church in Illinois. And
Yeah.
that is the power and the beauty of the
Yes.
body of Christ,
Yeah.
that it, you know, that it doesn't know those boundaries. And so I love that so much as part of your
Yeah.
story, that they were able to show up for you and really tangibly be the hands and the feet of
Yes.
Jesus for you guys
Yes.
in your time of need.
Yep.
So, well, take us to that moment where Cole had his cochlear implants turned
Oh my
on.
goodness,
What was that
yes.
like for you guys and for Cole?
Yeah, I know. It was so fun. He's always been a very active little boy, which I know is probably typical of many boys. Loved to, you know, wrestle and play and all that kind of stuff. And so I feel like it was really fun actually sitting in the chair right before he had his implants turned on. It's called his activation day, where they activate his actual implants so he can hear for the first time. And I was sitting in the chair. I was very pregnant with my third, which was my first daughter. She could have come at any moment. I think her due date was like the day after or something like that.
Goodness.
So it was just one of these moments where I'm sitting there watching my older son play on the ground with my mom, who had flown out from California to be there for the event, and my husband sitting next to me, and my daughter is about to come. And so here's this little guy sitting in this chair with an audiologist and with a speech therapist that just were phenomenal and had cared for him so well to this point. And when they turned on his cochlear implants and were starting to, you know, show him that he now has another sense, he now can hear, he just kind of looked up, and he had, you know, it was interesting. Some kids have different reactions, but he was super peaceful about it. But he had just this sort of like little knowing smile, that he smiled and kind of looked up at us and smiled, and then kind of went back down to his toys. Like I knew this was going to happen. This is good. Like, this is part of my story. You know, thanks guys for taking me this far. Like, this is going to be a good journey, Mom and Dad. So yeah, it was awesome.
Cute.
It was so awesome.
And so how about for you and your husband? What was kind of your emotional and spiritual state after you realized it worked, and you know that he could hear in a different way now?
Yeah, you know, I feel like that keeps unfolding, Lisa. Like, I think that's the cool part for me. I almost feel like in the moment I was so just thankful that the next step had come. Okay, so we got the diagnosis came. Okay, we were able, which was an amazing situation all of itself, to be able to pay for the implants because they're incredibly expensive.
Oh, I can only imagine.
we were currently on very little income because my husband was a student at the time. So we were on student insurance, and student insurance had really never considered paying for cochlear implants for a 1-year-old before. And so they had a special meeting for us, and God totally provided
what we're going to do.
Right. Like, what are these things, and how much are they, and what's going on?
You guys had moved forward with all this without knowing how much money you were going to be.
Had moved forward to the point where we had to figure that part out. And so then our audiologist said, I'll be honest, that's going to be tricky. Like, that's going to be hard. So let's just see what happens. Let's figure this out. There was some state funding, you know, all that kind of stuff, but that was tricky. But we kept moving forward in faith, knowing God has taken us this far. We're just going to keep stepping. We're just going to keep taking one more step. And we know he's led us this far. He's going to lead us, you know, to the next one. And they had a special meeting and decided to pay every cent of his surgery, of his devices. And we got a bill in the mail later, and it was over $300,000, you know. And I say that only because it's almost beyond me. I don't even know, just so beyond. God is so, his provision. It's like, I don't even want to tell you the need Jimmy's before I've already taken care of it. Like, I didn't know how much they cost until he did that. So as far as the emotional state of my husband and I, our journey, God continues to surprise us, because even with his cochlear implants, there were statistics saying that children who are deaf sometimes have a hard time reading. Sometimes they don't get past that 3rd grade reading level. So that's a difficult thing for them, because so much of reading is also hearing. And so we thought, okay, well, that's another thing that we might need to face. And, you know, just to see him now read so fluently, to have him enjoy books, you know, just this week. Yes, it is. Yes. I mean, just this week, he finished, I kind of challenged him to start the Chronicles of Narnia series, and he wasn't super interested, and he literally read a book a day this week. And I just was like, Cole, you didn't used to like to read. This was a hard thing for you, and look what God has done. God just keeps showing up. So I feel like God is not done in us and our emotional, you know, blessing through the whole thing. I mean, it was very hard to hear he was deaf. It was very just a wave of blessing to see him here for the first time, of like, wow, Lord, you did this, you know, look what you're doing. But every time he gets to play baseball and he can hear his coaches, even though it's hard for him to put the helmet on and hear, every time he he pushes through something else that's still hard.
Mm-hmm.
I go, thank you, Jesus. I mean, this is your continued story.
Yes.
You know, the chapters are still being written in his life. And I almost get more emotional now, to be honest with you, Lisa, like, just because I feel like God continues to show me his goodness in his life, you know, and how he keeps taking care of him.
So and I know Cole has a special Bible verse that he's really claimed for him. And can you tell us what that is?
Yeah. So he loves, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And, he claimed that we didn't give that to him. You know, he's actually loved reading the Bible for a long time now. He has one by his bed and he has a journal and he loves to write to Jesus. And he's actually super honest with Jesus. And I think that's an important thing for us to know and for me to know as his mom. You know, in that journal, he'll say, okay, Jesus, I know you and I can do anything. So this is what I want to do. And I have snuck in there, you know, and just peeked to see what the next page says. I'm not sure. He's okay. Like we've chatted about that. I gave him that journal, but just to kind of see. And, you know, there are times he's like, Lord, I asked for that baseball game to go better than that went, you know, like what's going on? I'm not hitting well. Like what's happening, you know? And, you know, I just love that honesty he has with Jesus. And so to know he can do all things through Jesus who gives him strength. Just lately, as I saw those thoughts unfold in his journal about, you know, gosh, Lord, this isn't all going well for me. Like, what's up? What's going on? I love being able to share with him lately, okay, Cole, it's actually about God's will being able to absolutely be just unearthed in your life. So you can do all things through him who gives you strength for his glory.
Yes.
For his glory. So as things come up in your life that God says, hey, let's partner in this, Cole. You're my guy. Let's do this together.
Right.
You know, God just goes, we can do this because I'm in this with you. And I know all the people that can know me through this next step you're going to take. And that is for me. That's for God, you know, just the ultimate joy. And for Cole, now to understand that a little bit more and to go, I'm seeing more and more friends that actually are coming to church with me and more and more friends that are knowing this Jesus because I love living life and I'm not afraid of these cochlear implants. I'm going to keep doing, I'm going to go swimming. I'm going to, you know, God provided waterproof cochlear implants. I'm going to go swimming and I'm going to play baseball even though I can't hear well with my helmet, and I'm going to do this and that. And you know what? The joy is not the home run you may want to hit, but the joy is that more and more people come to know that Jesus has cared for you and that you're able to do this with him.
Yes.
So,
and I love that so much of Cole's heart and your whole families is to make Jesus known through this whole process and your sharing of the story, and that's so much Cole's heart too, you know, and I think that's so powerful. And I think that's really helpful too for especially moms or families that have a child that has a special need or maybe a particular medical issue that they weren't expecting. So what would be your encouragement maybe to someone who's just found out that their child has a pretty serious medical challenge that they're going to face in that journey? How would you encourage them today?
You know, I would say feel all of the feels that go along with it. I remember once my mom said, you know, I had a blog through the time I had a blog I was writing, and she said, Denise, don't forget to tell people how you really feel, you know, that this is hard. It's important to be human and to see where Jesus meets us in our humanness, because he was human too. And he felt sadness and he felt frustration. So be human. But then it's also incredible to know that through this journey, you're not going to have to try to make Jesus famous through it. He just shows up. Like, he does that all on his own. You know, he doesn't need our help to make him famous. Like, he's just actually the best. And so he really doesn't need our help to be the best. So literally just being transparent with where you're hurting and where Jesus is meeting you. And the miracle that literally you could not have manufactured for yourself, even if you had tried your very hardest, that Jesus just showed up for you. You literally just have to tell his story, and his goodness does the rest. And his, you know, so that would be my encouragement, is just to live it, trust in Jesus, lean on him, be honest about where you're at. And he meets you in ways you could never, you know, be ministered to on your own. And people will say, yeah, that's something that I live that. I live that pain, and I need that Jesus too.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really helpful because, you know, when we encounter, whether it's a medical crisis or really anything with our kids that we don't expect or anticipate, you know, we have a choice of how we're going to handle that. And that really sets the stage for not only our family environment, but for how our child's going to face that situation too. And
that's true.
You know, really embracing that as an opportunity to see Jesus work, I think is such a powerful ability for a mom and for parents to kind of create that environment for a
Right.
child to walk through that challenge.
Yeah.
So I love that you guys have been able to embrace that and do that in a way for Cole, that he sees that
Yeah.
as an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to always tell him, you know, God has goodness for you in this, you know,
Mhm,
God has a
mhm,
story for you in this.
mhm.
And so there are times he's frustrated with it. There are
Sure.
times, I mean, he has said before, gosh, I wish I didn't have to wear these, you know, because it's
Mm,
harder for him. There are things that are harder,
sure.
but the fact that, he's embraced it so immensely because we've embraced him. We've embraced him. His community has embraced him. His
Right.
friends have embraced him.
Right.
He is not without embracing, you know, God has embraced him. And so to just keep cheering him on,
I
you
love
know,
that. I
keep
love that
cheering him
so
on.
much. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah.
story with us today, Denise. It's such an encouragement,
Yeah.
and I know it's going to be a blessing to a lot of people to hear that.
Mhm.
And we will continue to look forward to seeing how God uses your family, and especially Cole,
Yeah, thank you.
and through his continued journey with his cochlear implants, and just sharing his faith and all that God has done in his life and in your guys' in your family's life.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm Lisa Tony, and I'm here with Denise Burdett, and both of us just want to encourage you guys today to anchor your soul in hope and anchor your life in Jesus.